All right, so get ready because today we are going deep, like way deep into Brazilian history. And, well, believe it or not, Spiritism. You sent over some pretty fascinating stuff, actually, all about Tancredo Neves, the guy who was about to be Brazil's president back in 1985, but then tragedy struck. And what's really interesting is this isn't your typical historical analysis. You know, we're going beyond the usual sources here. We're exploring a YouTube video, actually, that looks at Neves' life through a spiritist lens.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And before we get into, all the specifics, it might be helpful if we just provide a little bit of context about Spiritism,
Yeah.
especially for those listeners who may not be super familiar with it. It's a spiritual movement that really took root in Brazil, emphasizing reincarnation and, the idea that we can actually talk to spirits. So kind of imagine this this cosmic justice system where actions in past lives affect the present. That's a core spiritist concept.
Okay, I'm hooked already. So this video links Tancredo Neves to this group called the Inconfidentes, basically 18th century revolutionaries who, plotted against Portuguese rule. And it claims that Neves was the reincarnation of Joaquim Silvério dos Reis, one of those Inconfidentes. But here's the thing. Silvério dos Reis was actually the one who betrayed the whole group.
Oh, yeah. And we're not talking about a little oopsie here. This video says that Silvério dos Reis was drowning in debt. Get this, a debt of 50 tons of gold. Apparently, he ratted out his comrades just to, wipe the slate clean.
Yeah,
and they're saying this betrayal created this karmic debt that Neves had to, deal with in his own life later on.
50 tons of gold. Wow. Talk about some serious baggage to carry, right?
Yeah,
across multiple lifetimes. Makes you think about the weight of our choices, doesn't it? Like, how can we even begin to understand a debt like that?
It really makes you think about cause and effect, Across different lifetimes, I mean, it's a lot to process. And what I think is so fascinating is how the video uses this historical event to really explore the whole idea of suffering. Like, is it always just a punishment for things you did in the past? Or could it actually be like a way to grow spiritually?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the video goes on to tell the story of another Inconfidente, a guy named Tiradentes, who's like a central figure in Brazilian history. People see him as this national hero, a martyr for independence. But this video, it adds this whole other layer to his story, suggesting that Tiradentes was like a high-ranking Freemason who used his artwork to, get this, to communicate secret messages.
Ah, yes. Hidden symbols, coded messages in art, I mean. You see that in so many esoteric and occult traditions. It's mysterious.
Yeah, but hold on, it gets even more interesting. The video claims that Tiradentes was executed on the same exact day, that Tancredo Neves died centuries later. Now that's got to be more than just a coincidence, right?
Yeah, I mean, from a spiritist point of view, it definitely suggests some kind of spiritual connection between these two figures, right? Like some kind of karmic link that just goes beyond time. And the video seems to draw a parallel between the punishments the Inconfident went through and the suffering that Neves experienced before his death.
Okay, so we have this idea of Neves carrying this karmic burden, right?
Yeah.
But the video also talks about redemption. So how does that all fit into the story?
Well, this is where the narrative takes another turn. It gets into the nitty-gritty of the punishments inflicted on the Inconfidants. And Tiradentes, endured the worst of it, drawn and quartered. It was brutal. And then they connect that directly to Neves' agonizing death from a severe infection, suggesting that his illness was a direct consequence of his actions as Silvério dos Reis. It's like this cosmic balancing of the scales, the betrayal in one life, leading to suffering in another. It really makes you think about how we understand justice.
It totally does. It's like, whoa, this narrative is making me rethink everything.
It really challenges that linear view of time and responsibility. And the video, it even gets into these really specific details. Like it mentions how Neves relied heavily on antibiotics, specifically tetracycline, to manage chronic pain. And then there's the symbolism of the white clothes he wore all the time, representing spiritual purity. All these details kind of come together to reinforce this idea of Neves' struggle to find peace, eventually redemption.
This video is packed with symbolism, I mean. What I find so interesting is how it uses these specific details to build this grand narrative, this whole story that connects past lives to the present. It's almost like they're reinterpreting history through this spiritual lens.
That's what's so cool about exploring these alternative perspectives.
Yeah.
You get to see different interpretations, see familiar stories in a new light. Like the video even brings in Queen Maria I of Portugal. The one who initially ordered the execution of all those Inconfidents.
Right. She wanted to make an example out of them. But then she suddenly had a change of heart, supposedly because the angel Ismael intervened It's fascinating how this video brings in these elements of divine intervention into the historical narrative.
It's important to remember that in Brazil, Spiritism often mixes with Catholicism. So seeing those historical figures with angelic beings isn't, it's not out of the ordinary.
So we're seeing more than just history here. It's like history woven with spiritual beliefs, specifically through the lens of Brazilian Spiritism. They're using the story of Tancredo Neves to explore these ideas of karma, redemption, and the legacy of Brazil's fight for independence. This is getting really thought-provoking. What stood out to you the most so far?
I think it's amazing how they use these historical figures and events to explore these deep spiritual concepts. It's not just about what happened, but about the meaning behind it all, the lessons we can learn from their journeys.
Totally agree. It's making me rethink how I look at historical events, like maybe there's always more to the story than what's on the surface.
Totally. The video encourages us to look past those traditional narratives and consider the possibility that, there might be these unseen forces at play.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more. The video describes some pretty intense scenes from Tiradentes' imprisonment. Apparently, he spent like 3 years in this dark stone cell and like horrific torture. They even claim that he would hurt himself just to feel something and then receive no medical attention, I mean.
This is where they really lean into the idea of karmic suffering, drawing that direct line between Tiradentes' brutal experience and Neves' pain in his final days.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. The video claims that Neves actually requested to experience those same physical afflictions as Tiradentes and the others, like as a way of atoning for his betrayal. It's intense, right? This idea of choosing to suffer as a way of redeeming yourself.
It is. It makes you wonder about free will and if we really have the power to choose our experiences, especially with this whole idea of karmic debts hanging over us.
And then there's the scene where Tiradentes is being presented to the judges, and he's just desperately looking for any sign of support, any hope. And the video says he used a secret Masonic signal, hoping another Mason would recognize it and, come to his aid.
That just highlights how important brotherhood and loyalty are in those Masonic traditions, like a glimmer of hope in this really dire situation.
Yeah, but no one responded.
And the video offers a pretty chilling explanation for that. It claims that many of those judges were the same people, whose throats, metaphorically speaking, of course, Tiradentes had slit in a past life when he refused to accept them as senators.
Whoa, talk about holding a grudge for, centuries. This portrayal of karmic retribution it's pretty intense.
It really challenges those conventional ideas of justice and forgiveness, right? Like our actions can echo through time and affect not only us, but the people around us as well. I mean, it's a lot to think about.
And just when you think it can't get any more dramatic, they bring us back to Queen Maria I and her encounter with the angel Ismail. This is where things shift, right?
Yes, that's where the divine intervention kicks in. Queen Maria was all about punishing those in confidence. But then, bam, the angel Ismail appears to her in a dream and basically gives her this divine reprimand.
It's really interesting how they portray that scene. Like, the angel's basically saying, hey, Jesus wouldn't approve of this violence, and that true justice isn't about cruelty or revenge. That's pretty powerful, especially back then.
It's a message that still resonates today, right? This idea that compassion and mercy can win, even when there's anger and a desire for revenge. It's pretty powerful.
It makes you wonder if maybe Queen Maria changing her mind was her own way of karmic redemption, choosing mercy over vengeance.
That's a really intriguing interpretation. This video does a great job of presenting these historical events in a new light, encouraging us to think about all the unseen forces that might be influencing things.
Okay, let's take a minute to process all this. We've covered a lot: betrayal, karma, divine intervention. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on how this video is reframing history through that spiritist lens?
What I think is most striking is how it's not just presenting facts. It's weaving them into this narrative that really grapples with some deep truths about human nature, the consequences of our choices, spiritual growth, past lives. It's a lot to unpack, but they do it in a really engaging way.
Totally agree. It's making me rethink how our beliefs and our spiritual interpretations can shape how we see history. Maybe there are always these layers of meaning that we need to uncover.
For sure. And that's what makes exploration so amazing, right? It challenges what we think we know and opens our minds to new possibilities. It's fascinating how this video connects Tancredo Neves' story to these broader spiritual concepts, particularly the idea of karmic debts and the process of redemption.
Mm.
You mentioned that massive debt, 50 tons of gold that Silverio dos Reis owed. The video really emphasizes how the betrayal created this ripple effect, a karmic one, that Neves had to work through later in his life.
It really does make you wonder, can we ever truly escape the consequences of our actions, even across different lifetimes? The video seems to be suggesting that while we can't change the past, we can learn from it, strive to make amends. It's like that saying, you can't outrun your karma, but maybe you can try to understand it, work with it, and maybe even balance the scales somehow.
Exactly, exactly. The video portrays Neves as someone who acknowledged his past mistakes and sought forgiveness and ultimately achieved this state of spiritual redemption. It's not about punishment, it's more about growth, evolution.
And this idea of redemption, it's not just about individual lives, is it? The video also connects these personal stories to the bigger narrative of Brazil's history, the ongoing struggle for social justice.
Yeah, it suggests that the fight for freedom and equality isn't just limited to one lifetime or even one generation. It's a continuous effort, that transcends time and space and connects us all.
That's powerful. It's like we're all part of something so much bigger than ourselves, that our actions have these ripple effects that extend way beyond us. This video is making me think, what kind of a karmic baggage am I carrying around? What can I do to make amends for past wrongs?
It's a question we all grapple with, isn't it? And this video encourages us to examine our choices, consider the impact they have on others, both in this life and, if you believe in it, beyond.
The video also highlights the role of divine intervention, particularly through the angel Ismail. They present him as this guiding force, almost like a stage manager working behind the scenes, to nudge events in a particular direction.
It speaks to that belief in spiritual guidance, right? It's in so many cultures, this feeling that we're not alone. But the video doesn't present this as a passive experience. We still have free will, even with those guiding forces.
Right. Even when things feel chaotic or uncertain, there's that sense of a higher power maybe orchestrating things, working towards the ultimate good.
Comforting thought, right? To think that even with all the challenges and uncertainty of life, there's this force guiding us toward a greater purpose.
It is. It reminds me of times when I felt lost, confused, and then suddenly things just fall into place, as if by magic.
Maybe it's a reminder to trust the process, even when we don't understand what's happening.
We've talked about karma, redemption, divine intervention. What else stands out to you about this video's spiritual perspective?
I think it's how they blend history, politics, spirituality, all into this one narrative. They're not just retelling events, they're finding deeper meaning, connections between them.
It's like everything is interconnected. There are these threads linking past, present, future. Makes you wonder, is there some grand design to it all?
Exactly. And by exploring those connections, we can better understand ourselves and the world around us.
I'm also struck by how they use symbolism, like the white clothing Neves wears representing spiritual purity. Those details add another layer of meaning to the story.
Symbolism is a powerful tool, right? It can communicate complex ideas in a way that resonates.
This deep dive is making me think about how often we just accept history at face value, without thinking about the deeper meaning.
This is why exploring different perspectives is so valuable. It challenges our assumptions and opens up new possibilities.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to some of those specific details they provide. The video talks about how Tiradentes' movement inspired so much art, even centuries after his death. His struggle definitely left a mark.
It says a lot about his legacy, right?
Yeah.
That fight for freedom and justice still resonates with people today.
And there's that scene where Tiradentes is being led to his execution, and he sees the fear, the despair in the eyes of the other inconfidantes. It's such a human moment.
It shows the human toll of this struggle. Reminds us that behind historical events, there are real people experiencing them.
And then Tiradentes does something remarkable. He takes full responsibility, claims the others were just following him. What do you make of that?
It's courage and compassion. He's putting his comrades first, even as he faces death. It's like he's saying, don't let my sacrifice be in vain. Keep fighting for a better future.
He's turning his execution into this symbol of hope and resistance. And the video even describes that moment of his death, claiming that as his soul left his body, the angel Ismail received it.
It's this powerful image of spiritual transcendence, suggesting that even in death, There's this continuity of consciousness, a journey beyond the physical realm.
And remember how the video mentioned that Tiradentes committed cruel acts in a past life as an inquisitor? Well, here, Ismail tells him he's redeemed himself through his sacrifice for freedom.
Reinforces the idea of karmic balance, right? We have the power to atone for past mistakes through love and service. It's hopeful.
It is. Like, no matter what we've done, we have the potential to change, grow, make a positive impact. And then they describe the scene where Tiradentes' spirit is welcomed into this spiritual realm by all these enlightened beings.
Like a cosmic celebration, right? Recognizing his bravery and the impact of his sacrifice. And the video even quotes Ismail saying that Tiradentes will now become a guiding spirit for Brazil, working from the spiritual realm to support the nation's progress.
So he's like a protector spirit watching over Brazil and guiding it toward a brighter future.
Exactly. His work continues, even from beyond the physical realm.
And they even suggest that Tiradentes influenced Queen Maria's decision to show mercy to the other Inconfidentes. It's like he's advocating for them from beyond the grave.
It's a powerful example of how our actions can have these unintended consequences, reaching beyond us and influencing events in ways we may never understand.
And it's not just about individual spirits, right? The video also talks about how the spirit of Tiradentes works with other enlightened beings to guide and protect Brazil as a nation.
It speaks to that belief in a spiritual hierarchy, a collective of beings working to support the evolution of humanity.
This is also fascinating, the idea that we're not alone in this journey and that there are these forces, seen and unseen, working towards good.
It's comforting, especially when you consider all the challenges humanity faces. Maybe it's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unseen forces that support us.
This deep dive has been quite the journey. We've gone through Brazilian history, politics, and spirituality, all through this lens of spiritism.
And we still have more to uncover. In our final part, we'll examine the video's message and think about what it means for us.
Man, what a journey this has been, huh? I mean, through Brazilian history and spiritism and, this whole idea of reinterpreting the past through reincarnation and karma and spiritual evolution, it's really got me thinking about history in a new way.
Yeah, it's definitely challenged our usual ideas about cause and effect. And, the video doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either. It acknowledges those really brutal moments in history.
Right. It doesn't try to make things prettier than they were. It acknowledges the suffering and injustice, but then it goes a step further. It suggests that those dark periods can actually serve a higher purpose, become opportunities for learning, for growth, and even redemption. It's kind of a powerful way to look at those difficult parts of history.
Yeah, it really shows how much humans can change and transform. Even those really tough experiences can lead to positive change, both for individuals and for, whole societies.
And you know what else is so compelling about this video? It's not just giving us a spiritual interpretation of history, it's also offering this message of hope, this idea that transformation is possible for all of us. What really gets me is how they weave together the personal and the political. Like, our individual journeys are part of this larger story of human history, you know what I mean?
It reminds us that we're all connected, part of something much bigger. Our actions, our choices, they create these ripples that go way beyond us, impacting the world in ways that we may never even fully understand.
And those ripples, they aren't just limited to this life either, right? This whole concept of reincarnation suggests that our choices and experiences that kind of echo across multiple lifetimes. Makes you wonder, right, about those recurring patterns in your own life, the challenges that keep popping up. Maybe there's this deeper karmic connection there.
It makes you want to take a closer look at those patterns. Maybe if we examine them, we can better understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And, our purpose in this lifetime.
Okay, so as we wrap up, let's bring it back to Tancredo Neves. This video portrays him as someone who achieved spiritual redemption. Even though he was carrying this heavy karmic burden from a past life, it's like he used his time in this life to learn, to grow, and ultimately to make things right for the mistakes of his past.
And it doesn't stop there. The video also talks about his contributions to Brazilian society, his role in bringing democracy to the country. It's like he used his political power to serve a greater purpose, to do good in the world.
Yeah, it shows that redemption really is possible no matter what. Even those who have messed up can still make a positive difference.
This has been a deep dive in every sense of the word. I mean, we've gone through Brazilian history, politics, spirituality, all through this lens of spiritism. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And it's shown us how different perspectives can really change how we understand the past, the present, and even ourselves. And as we leave our listeners with all of this to think about, I'm left with this one question, if our past lives can really shape our current experiences. What can we do today to create positive karma for the future? What choices can we make to build a better tomorrow for ourselves and for the generations to come?
That's a powerful question, and maybe that's the biggest takeaway here. This understanding that we have the power to shape our own destiny, not just in this life, but across time itself. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into, well, I guess you could call it karmic history.
Yeah, karmic history. I like that. And until next time, keep exploring those unseen connections. And remember, the choices we make today create the ripples of tomorrow.